The whole thing is that, he's at this point 20 years independent. I had been 20 years inside the studio, and it was kind of this: how do you take our skill sets and keep the budgets low, right? Yet strive for that quality of a studio system. This really turned out to be the perfect project for us.
Well, I think it was something for me on the independent side. I mean, God was very clear for me when I started my career is I was basically saying I'm tired of crappy Christian content.
I've started to think about it as platforms, not projects. It's kind of how do you get around the most excellent people in the industry who have a slate of content that they want to produce, and how do you invest in that diversified platform? And now I think what's encouraging to Christians is there are platforms operating at a level of excellence that probably wasn't true in the recent past, whether that's 5 and 2, whether it's Wonder Project, or Out of Order.
Here's to bold visionaries, faithful investors who make God the goal. While some may call them crazy, we see a joyful adventure. God has empowered us to use courageous capital, solving the world's greatest problems under His power for His glory. Welcome to the Faith-Driven Investor Podcast. Opinions expressed in this podcast, including the team and guests, are solely their opinions. Hosts and guests may maintain positions and securities discussed. This podcast is for informational purposes only. It should not be relied upon as specific investment advice for any individual or organization. Thanks for listening.
Welcome to the Faith-Driven Investor Podcast. This is John Coleman, your host for the day, and I'm coming to you from the set of The Chosen, just south of Dallas, in the Sanhedrin throne room here, which is quite the setting to be recording a podcast. And we've got a very special podcast today because we've got Chris and Chad from Out of Order Studios with us today to talk about investing in and creating film and TV. Chris and Chad have been longtime industry veterans. They founded Out of Order together, and they were some of the earliest partners with Dallas Jenkins as he took up this project of creating The Chosen and have been with him ever since through now the 5th season, headed into the 6th season, creating what many of us think is one of the most important works of media in the modern world. I'm excited to dig into it with them, and we thank you for joining us today. Well, Chad and Chris, it's amazing to be with you all today on the Faith-Driven Investor Podcast. We are in a quite unusual setting. This is the Sanhedrin, I think, on the Chosen set in Midlothian, Texas. Let's start there because you guys have been an integral part of the Chosen story. How did you first get involved with the Chosen?
Well, I guess it's both fortunately and unfortunately we have been apart since day one, and obviously we're pretty glad we said yes because we almost said no in a good way. So Dallas and I, we go way back, going all the way back to probably 2002 or 3. I was a recent film grad, so I graduated in 2000 with a film degree and had done some small things, commercials, music videos, stuff like that. And I had read the Left Behind series. Many people over the years have read that series. And I literally wrote a fan letter to Jerry Jenkins, like a handwritten fan letter to Jerry Jenkins. And much like Dallas does now with social media, Jerry Jenkins answered me.
Wow.
Dallas loves to engage with his audience.
That's cool.
He'll get out there and do messages to people on social media. And so I think he got that from his dad, right? Because his dad was very personal and he wrote me a letter back. And my letter literally was, hey, I'm a recent film student. I love these books. If they ever get made into a movie, I want to be a part.
That's awesome.
And that was it. And he wrote me back and he said, well, oddly enough, they are being made into movies. Here's the information from my son, Dallas. Dallas is a year or two older than me, so he had kind of been going a little bit longer, and they had done some stuff with some of Jerry's other books with other people. And so Dallas and I connected that way. Kind of long story short there, obviously they didn't stay a part of that initial project, but Dallas and I stayed in touch. And probably within a year or two of that, Dallas, he reaches out and says, hey, I'm shooting my first short film. I already have a producer, but if you just want to come and just be a part and help, I don't really need a producer. And it's definitely arguable whether I was actually a producer at that point in my career, at 22, 25, whatever I was at the time. And so I literally flew myself to California. I slept on his hotel room floor. Awesome. And then a buddy of mine who lived in LA, and I started as an unpaid PA on that first short film. But by the end of that short film, I was a co-producer on the project.
Wow.
Just kind of
cool.
stepping up and helping and doing, and that's kind of, and Chris and I both kind of, this is kind of one of the mantras of Out of Order. We're just going to do whatever it takes to get it done, right? If I need to get your coffee, great. But if I hired somebody to get you coffee, well, we have a problem because now we're wasting money, and I'm going to address that too. And so Dallas and I, after that, Dallas says, hey, I'm going to do another short film. Do you want to actually produce it this time? And I said, yes. That short film was Midnight Clear. So we did Midnight Clear
cool.
as a short film. And then about a year later, we did Midnight Clear as a feature.
And this was still a long time ago.
So yeah, this was 2005.
Yeah.
And then kind of fast forward, Dallas and I didn't work together from 2005 on. And then Chris and I, we started Out of Order in 2015. And in 2017, Dallas reached out and said, hey, I've been working at a church, large church up in Chicago. We've been making short films for holidays, Christmas, Easter, stuff like that. And one of my short films kind of caught the attention of some folks, and they want to crowdfund. And of course, we all know crowdfunding never works. Don't do crowdfunding. I would even argue with the amazing success of The Chosen, crowdfunding doesn't work. We're the exception to many, many rules. And then oddly enough, Chris and I, while we are believers, it's obviously a very big part of who we are and what we do. We weren't necessarily looking for a straight down the middle, Bible project. And it's like, do we really need another Jesus project? Really? Like, is that what we
what was
need?
it like when you guys got the script and it was a Jesus project?
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, again, I remember when we set up the company and we were meeting with the wives, what kind of company do we want to be, right? And I had no interest. I'd been in the studio system for 20 years. I didn't set out to just make Bible-based projects, right? There's a certain, with a few exceptions, right? They're pretty much in a box, and they're not of a quality. They're not engaging. It's kind of in many ways it's kind of lazy storytelling.
Yep.
And so on the surface, he's talking to me, hey, I got this guy and all these things. I was like, I don't know. I just don't, from a company standpoint, is that really what we want to do? Now, we did always want to be, good world content, moral content, biblically based, but, almost like more like your Chick-fil-A versus being like, so this notion of good service and good storytelling and stuff like that was really important. And so, quite honestly, on the surface, I was like, I don't know. And,
and we went through this period where Christian art almost became a dirty word. I mean, if you look back hundreds or thousands of years, the greatest novels, I mean, Dante's Inferno, the greatest art, the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel.
It was all commissioned.
It was
the
Christians.
government was commissioning,
But then it got too tidy. The stories were they weren't real. And we went through this period where the content was not of the quality that was necessary.
Well, it was like there was a driving force. All the faith people that I was talking to were really driving towards bookstores, right? It was like, how do I get this DVD made and get it into the bookstore and stuff like that? And I'm of the mindset that really the social dialogue is taking place at the movie theaters, right? That is a neutral place. So, getting somebody into your home to have a conversation is one thing. Getting somebody into a church to watch something that's hard because you're getting somebody over that threshold. But any kind of a topic that you take into, a movie theater, it's a social event. You go, and then there's conversations afterwards. So those are the kinds of stories and things that were driving for me. So I distinctly remember Chad finishes the first. He reads the first script of the first episode, and he goes, "Okay, look,
this is different."
And he really couldn't even explain it. Yeah. And he's like, "You just need to read it." And when you can read something that clear and know how different it can be, then all of a sudden it fit everything in our model.
Yes.
Right? Because the whole thing is that, he's 20, at this point, 20 years independent. I'd been 20 years inside the studio. And it was kind of this, how do you take our skill sets and keep the budgets low, right? Yet strive for that quality of a studio system. So how do you cut some of the waste out? How do you of the studio systems? Yet how do you independence in this notion of just trying to get directly into the bookstores as being the goal, right? How do you elevate all that? So that this really turned out to be the perfect project for us.
Well, I think it was something for me on the independent side. I mean, God was very clear for me when I started my career is I was basically saying, I'm tired of crappy Christian content.
Yep.
I'm just tired of it. I'm tired of the music had been shifting a little bit before that. Like you look at the kind of the late 90s and stuff like that, and there were, POD was playing on Ozfest,
Yep.
right? Like
Yep.
this huge, massive not believer
Totally.
was getting these Christian bands that were just great musicians,
That's right.
whatever they're saying, whatever, most of the time with some of these bands, you can't understand what they're saying anyways, but there was just this shift in music and you were seeing this quality and film was lacking. And so when I started my career, that was a huge goal of mine. I'm just like, I can't stand crappy Christian content. And the excuse of, oh, well, God's going to bless it. I'm like, well, God doesn't want your crap. Like,
He calls us to be excellent.
My
That's
God,
what we talk
my
about
God
all the
says
time.
do all things in excellence.
That's right.
My God said that He would build the temple and do these things,
Yes.
knowing it was going to be destroyed. But I still want the best artists.
Yes.
And when it talks about even with the temple and stuff, the wood of Lebanon or whatever, I'm like, I would bet that the majority of those people weren't believers.
Yep.
Right? But they were the best at what they did, and that's what God wanted. And that was part of the vision that Chris and I had Out of Order is we just want to really make good content. And the fact that you have to say that in the faith space is such a horrible thing. Oh, well, we're going to make it good. Or when people see the shows and they're like, oh, it's really good. Like, you have good actors and the writing's amazing.
Totally.
It looks amazing. You're like, the fact that that's part of the thought process, that it's not good, but yet it is good and good for you for making Christian content that's actually good. Like that's the type of narrative that we at Out of Order was a huge part of what we wanted to do. And so when this project came along, that's where we shine. And so we're like, Dallas, yes, let us help create an environment around you as a director and as a creative to where it's going to be good. And then the writing was already good. And obviously Ryan and Tyler and Dallas have done an amazing job on the writing side of things. And so we helped kind of create that perfect storm, right, of all these great artists. And obviously not everybody on The Chosen's a believer. And
Take
so
me
that's
to
the
that
thing.
first season, because I've heard Jonathan Roumie tell this story where he was literally a starving artist and had done this short film for Dallas where he played Jesus, and Dallas kind of asked him to put the sandals back on and try out this first season. Talk to us about that first season of production. And then when did it hit you that this was breaking out of the box? You might have put it in, and that was really finding an audience, which is now I think 520 million people have seen it or something. Like, talk to us about that.
Yeah, it's really interesting for me because again, I came out of large budgets.
Yep.
Right. So here we have, so I think it's really, we had done some other projects, but this was probably one of our most exciting ones that we were doing. So when we first started, we had enough money to do 4 episodes.
Yep.
So half a season, and we had zero clue.
Yep.
If there would ever be money for an episode 5.
Yep.
Much less where we are now. We just started, we're in the middle of season 6 right now. So just the early days, I mean, it's interesting because again, he had the relationship with Dallas. I'm this big studio guy. Like Dallas didn't even know kind of even what to do with me.
Yep.
Right. And again, so my brain is structure and size and all this, and it's like, okay, well, we got these 4.
The CGI budget was a little lower.
There was there's definitely
Well, there was definitely a switch for Dallas though, after a certain scene. That
yeah,
kinda
so
woke
there-
him up to where that could fit in.
where it could go. Yeah, I mean, there was no. It really from a visual effect, as far as visual effects go. I mean, it was more just paint out and fix, and maybe occasional blue screen here and there. But it definitely was not part of that. So it was really small. It was really intimate. It was unique in so many ways. But I don't think anybody knew. I think when I started to get a sense, my wife, who was normally really involved in my projects and stuff like that. I mean, we were shooting here in Texas. I don't think she ever went to set. She really didn't even know what was going on. And when we sat down and we watched that first episode, that's when she was like, "Wait, this is what you've been doing?"
Wow.
Right? And so that was kind of the first indication. It took a little while after that, I would say. There were some things to where, when we showcased the first 4 episodes, it was NRB in 2018, I think. And, there was the big fanfare that year was Kingdom's announcement.
Yep.
They'd filled a 1,600 room thing, the fanfare, all that was going on. And
This was the Lionsgate deal.
The
that-
Lionsgate
that John
deal
had done,
for
which was
them.
big news
No,
at the
huge,
time
huge.
because it was a major studio.
Yeah, and these were
with a
friends of
Christian
ours,
director.
right?
Yeah,
we
and
know
so-
Kevin, we know John, we know Andy. So it was exciting, and we had our little project in the back, you know.
Well, we were doing small screenings in a really small room, and then the History Channel had another room across the way. But then again, we were going to show episode 1, and so Dallas spoke, and he was in that same room that the night before that the Kingdom announcement had taken place, and Dallas is up on stage telling his story, and there's 50 people in there.
Yep.
You know, and so you see, and you know, I think people forget about those really humble beginnings of that,
Yes.
right? And so it was, and you know, you flash forward, it was probably season 2. I think
After
COVID.
2, yeah.
COVID hitting
Yes.
and that kind of stuff. That's when it really, the dynamic shifted, because then now NRB season 2, we show an episode at NRB, and 1,600 tickets sold out in like 7 minutes.
Wow. Unbelievable.
And just the energy in that room and stuff like that. And I think that's when it was like, none of us knew exactly what was happening, where it was going, but it was like, okay, we're in for a ride here. Like this has got the attention of the world.
And the approach was very different, right? So Daryl Eves, right, one of our executives, partners with Dallas in this whole thing. He's this social media YouTube guru. Like he knows how to create an audience. He knows how to do these things. And again, going back to COVID was probably one of the biggest igniters of this show. You know, we kind of joke and go, people were kind of tired of watching a guy and his tigers, right? They were kind of like, we've had enough.
Tiger King was a big hit.
I know, right? Because everybody was locked up. You had nothing. And so, but I think what it did is people were looking for hope. People were looking for something a little bit more positive when they were locked up, didn't know what was going on. The weird world was in this weird chaotic state, and believers were in this weird middle ground of yes, but no, and you know, but God, but we're in a pandemic, like all these things. And then the show comes out, and it is when we kind of started our whole hashtag binge Jesus, right? Like that's when season 1 really took off during the pandemic. We were one of the very first shows up and going for season 2, one of the first major shows. And we were still pretty small at the time, but Hollywood wasn't shooting anything. Nothing was going on. And then even through COVID was such a big thing for us because we never had experienced a huge shutdown. I mean, we had cases, people getting COVID, but we did things a little bit differently. We approached it differently, even with COVID, and it never shut us down. So that was a huge testimony for us to talk about. And then, like I said, in NRB during season 2, it was that was when everybody was like, I think we're going to go make a show for a few seasons.
Yeah, what's happening?
God owns it all, and he cares deeply about the how, where, and why behind our investment strategies. Money is put into our hands to steward wisely for his glory and for the flourishing of the people around us. That's why Faith Driven Investor created our foundation groups, 1 hour a week for 6 weeks, online or in person. Connect with like-minded investors to walk through the faith-driven investing study. Hear real-life stories of battle-tested investors solving some of the world's greatest problems. Discuss what it means to embrace your call to impact the world for God's glory, and get in the game. Don't battle alone. Your calling is too important. Visit faithdriveninvestor.org and join a group today.
Well, I remember John Irwin tells that same story where he said, we did the big Lionsgate announcement and I was the talk of the town.
Yeah.
And then I go back to NRB for season 2 and suddenly there's this guy, Dallas, who's the talk of the town. And it was, our story, it's similar to yours with the script. Like my wife watched the first season, I think, and was really enamored with it, watched it a couple times. It took her about a year to get me to watch it because I thought this is just going to be bad.
Yeah.
And then I remember that first episode, the Mary scene in particular at the end, where, spoiler alert, Mary's gone through this suffering and Jesus calls her out. And I'm just waterworks, in our bedroom watching this TV show, just crying my eyes out. And I think believers had been desperate for real human stories told well, with all the messiness of humanity involved, without the little bows tied around everything.
Right.
And it just struck that nerve, I think, of something we'd all been waiting for. What are some of the most fun stories of the last, because we're on season 5 right now, filming season 6. What are some good stories?
Well, I mean, Dallas talks about all the Red Sea moments a lot, right? Where we're just kind of backed into a wall and kind of going, all right, well, we can't figure this out. So this is one of those moments where we all just kind of sit around and just go, all right, Lord, what are we doing, right? And so those stories have been told a lot. But I think one of the impact for me, and this is something, again, that Chris and I did as Out of Order, and it's something that we talked about with the wives when we started the company and what our goals were. Because both of us had experienced it, again, me on the independent side and him inside the studio, and I think the best way to say it is you never know what's going to happen with the project when it's done, right? Who knew The Chosen was going to turn into this? I mean, sure, we didn't. I mean, yes, we wanted it to be successful. Yes, we wanted to go, but for it to turn into what it turned into, only God's hand on that could do what he's doing. And obviously, there's this huge movement right now in entertainment, with the Irwin brothers and all that they're doing, and Kingdom and Wonder, and just all these great projects that are starting to come out, which is a great side of that. But we really just we don't know. I don't care how much marketing you do. I don't care how much money you spend. All those things, you just never know. And that's just true for Hollywood in general, right? That's right. I say it all the time, like, you see this movie that's this global phenomenon and you watch it and you're like, that's the biggest piece of trash I've ever seen. Like, it is so bad, but it made $1 billion or whatever. And then all of a sudden you'll come across some little movie and, I want to say on DVD, but, online or wherever you come across something, you're like, how did I not... This is such a great movie. How did I not find out about it? So for whatever reason, right? And again, there is thing to marketing and all those things that are very important. And so that's something that Chris and I both said from very early on is, okay, we can't control that. Yes, we need to be good stewards of our money. We need to be good stewards and find the right people to do all the things, marketing and publicity and all that stuff, which we have an amazing team on The Chosen. But one thing we can control is how we treat people on set on a daily basis. Yeah. And that has been a huge thing for us. Dallas has a very similar vision, so it's been something that he had done as well. And so what Chris and I do as producers is we want to just create an environment that's very different, right? And we get told it all the time. I've never met a producer like you. Like and I've worked for a lot of producers and all these things, and I'm talking about crew members or even cast coming to us. And now all of a sudden, when people say, what's different about you? Well, there's your big moment, right? To be able to go, oh, well, you asked, so here I'm going to tell you. So that's kind of one of those swinging doors. Our wives are the same way. We joke and go, our wives don't come to set to see us. They come to see some of the crew members that they love and have a relationship with and ask them how they're doing and how their families and how their kids and all those things. And this industry will eat you up and spit you out. Yes. And I don't care if you're working on a Christian project. If anything, there's probably a little bit more of a bad taste in the Christian space because there's been a lot of this, do it for the Lord, don't work for free, do all these things. And it's just like, well, that's definitely not biblical, right? So there's just all these things. So something that we really focused on is how do we create an environment here where people, they feel safe, right? Because that's something that, within our industry, we get all walks of life. But we just love on people and we're just here for them. And a lot of times we get to pray for them. Obviously, they know the kind of show they're working on. Like, we're not holding back there. But at the same time, we want the best people for the job.
That's right.
And we do. We find the best people for the job. And many of them are not believers. And that's totally fine. But they know what they're here to do. They experience things. And it's amazing every now and then when they say, this was not what I was expecting from a quote unquote Christian show. So that's been a big thing.
Well, you talked about that pursuit of excellence, right? And so the whole thing is that you shouldn't limit by just Christians, right? You should. I really feel like you open up that pool to everybody, but then in turn you can minister to them. Right. And again, it doesn't even have to be direct. Again, I can't tell you how many times I now call them our Matthews, right? So the people that are too smart for their own good, they see something that they don't understand, and it puts a pebble in their shoe, right? And so I think we have a fair amount of Matthews that have been with us since the beginning, that they've just there's things that there's approaches, right? So we've had wettest rain season on record during season 2. We had the 100-year freeze during Sermon on the Mount for season 3. We had just brutal heat. Like, Texas heat's brutal, but this was even more right in the middle of our feeding of the 5,000. I mean, there were 12,000 unique people that came through this campus in 1 week.
Wow.
Right. And so it's like these.
And this is not a big set. People who haven't been here, I mean, we're on the side of a pond, which is the
Yeah,
Sea
yeah,
of
yeah,
Galilee,
yeah.
on a kind of ranch in Texas. This is 12,000 people here. Would
Yeah,
be
so on
a lot.
the flip side, right? So over where the sound stages are and stuff like that, there's what is it, 700 acres out there. So again, you do your feeding in the 5,000s out there.
There's
but
big
again,
fields.
but
Yeah.
huge. Again, still the logistics on things that people don't think about is where do people park? Where do they go to the bathroom? How are you going to feed them?
Yeah.
Much less how are you going to keep them out of the elements and keep them safe and stuff like that. So yeah, it's just these huge events that have it's not been smooth, right? It comes with its challenges, yet there's an approach. Again, I think one of the most memorable moments for me with Dallas is 3 days before Sermon on the Mount, and we're out on that hill and it's 80 degrees out there and it's gorgeous, and he's looking at his app and sees the storm coming in, and there's no way to stop it. That's 2,200 people coming from multiple countries and all over the U.S. These people have paid their own way. They've made their own costumes. They've
the middle of COVID as well.
donated. It's COVID. All these things, and so there's no way to stop this machine. Yet, watching how he leads and then how we lead impacts not only our crew, right, but it impacts everybody else. So this pursuit of excellence, and regardless of faith, it still impacts people behind the scenes just as much as it's impacting worldwide in front of the scenes. So there's been so many great stories on that front.
Well, and I think the industry has always looked at faith content very suspect. Mm-hmm. There's always this: what are you doing? What are you trying to get away with? What aren't you doing right? And I think Sermon on the Mount was a great example of that. Again, going back to the COVID of it, right? And so, COVID in the industry, there was all these weird rules, right, of how you test and when you test and how often you test and who gets tested and all these things. And we just said, look, we're scrapping all those rules. Everybody's being tested 3 times a week, period. And it cost us millions of dollars to do it that way. But it goes back to that. We never shut down. We never had any of those issues. But during Sermon on the Mount, when again, 2,200, 2,400 with the cast and crew as well were on property, those 2,200 people tested themselves before they got on a plane and had to prove it to us that they did. So I had to send an email, a copy of their stuff. Then they showed up. We had to test them again. We tested them that morning. We tested 2,200 people before we even started. So we had a team of people doing that, including Chris and I. I was guarding a gate, and he was directing traffic and doing stuff out in the middle of the cold.
Actually, the solution of the tests were starting to freeze.
Yeah, little droplets.
Oh my gosh.
And so we were
freezing.
literally running them back and running them in front of heaters because it was just like they're.
But then the whole day goes off really, really well, and then all of a sudden we get a call from SAG New York, right? So SAG is the actors union that represents all actors, and they're the ones that really led the charge within COVID because of obviously actors are the most exposed. They can't wear masks, they can't do all these things. And this guy in New York was hot. Like, he called me up, how dare you? You can't have that many people out in the field. There are rules and and you can't get clearance from the county or the city or the state and and just he goes on and on. Just he was mad. He's like, you're exposing people, and I go, well, okay, well let's talk about what is it that you need. Well, did you test? I said, yes. Here's 2,200 tests twice before they even walked on set. And the guy's like, oh. He goes, well, the state has rules and the county has rules. And I said, well, the judge down the road, because the local judge in this county is a huge fan of the show, and he had helped us through that whole process. And he goes, here's every form that you need to fill out. Here's the clearance. And so when this guy's yelling at me, I'm like, oh, you mean this form? Oh, you mean this clearance? Oh, you mean I did do it right? And it was just like, it was like record scratch. But again, obviously there's a lot of fear there, which I totally get. But the assumption that the Christians are going to do their own thing and not listen and not go by the rules, it was just really, really funny. And then all of a sudden it just kind of changed. It kind of changed the dynamic around our show of we're not this ragtag little thing. Yes, we are. In season 6, we're much smaller budget-wise than we should be. Any other show, period, piece, that's a huge worldwide phenomenon, and going into its 6 seasons would have a lot more money than we do, right? And obviously our budgets are public knowledge. People know what we spend. And again, we're by no means a small project anymore. We're not what we were in season 1, but no shows go from season 1 tiny to season 6 bigger, not as big as it should be. Most shows go from big and they just get bigger, right? There is no like tiny, minuscule little budgets and then you work into these bigger budgets. And again, by no means are we a small budget now, but again, compared to any other Netflix show that's in its 6th season, period piece, worldwide, huge success, we should have a whole lot more money. So it's just a testament to our crew. It's a testament to our cast. It's a testament to just God kind of going, here's how we're going to do it. And it's just been, the journey has been crazy, very humbling for sure.
Let's talk about, you touched on one topic I want to get into, which is how unpredictable this industry can be. You can have a surefire thing that goes nowhere. You can have something like The Chosen that gets crowdfunded, produces half a season, and grows to reach 500 million people. As an investor, someone looking to invest in projects or production companies, how do you think about it from their perspective? How can an investor approach this and be thoughtful about the types of projects or the types of teams that they want to invest in?
I think he already knows what I'm going to say. Over the years, again, we've both been doing this for a very long time, and I can't tell you how many very well-off investors that we've come across that invested in a project, and because they did, they go, oh, I'll never do that.
Everybody gets burned.
Never do that again.
Everybody gets burned.
And then the interesting thing is, though, is you sit down with that person, because a lot of times they just have questions, right? Because they meet us and they see what we've done and how we've done it and all that sort of things. And one of the most amazing things to me that I've noticed almost across the board, I mean, I would argue 90%, maybe more, maybe 100%, I just don't want to say 100%, is you look at the teams that they invest in and you're just like, why would you ever do that? And again, the majority of very high net worth individuals, a lot of times, obviously, they have an expertise in one area, right? Like, oh, this guy invented something that was unbelievable, right? And this lady, she started this company, it was unbelievable. And so they're obviously extremely intelligent people. They got there somehow. And so it's always amazing to me that, like, wait a minute, you are at the highest of your game in whatever your world of is, real estate or oil and gas, whatever it is, like you're really, really, but yet you didn't do the research. And again, I'm saying this as softly as I can, that you invested in that person and you gave them millions of dollars, and that there's nothing there that shows you that, oh, there's a proven commodity here. And again, I'm all about taking risks. I'm all about those types of things. And obviously, I'm an independent guy, and now The Chosen has been one of these things that's become that. But it's amazing to me that there isn't enough research. And again, I think a lot of time in the faith space, some people just get excited about the idea of doing that. And I think that's totally fine, but then don't have an expectation, right? Have the expectation is maybe we're just doing this for the Lord, literally. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But then don't get upset if it didn't do something when you didn't do the proper business side of it to get there, because it is high risk. It is very high risk.
Yeah, if I use an animation example, because again, I spent a lot of years in high-end animation. I've gone in and talked to people about a project, and they go, "Oh, well, we've got this guy from Disney, right?" And so you sit there and you go, "Oh, okay, you got somebody from Disney." Well, but that person from Disney was, let's say, an animator.
Yeah.
Right? That doesn't mean that they know how to push a whole project out, right? So people hear things and they kind of attach to it, and so it's tough, right? It's tough to be able to know, okay, well, wait, what does that actually mean? There's that aspect, but look at Hollywood though. It's extremely risky no matter what, and I think that's probably on the faith side the way we need to kind of look at it is even with the right teams, right? You see these things and you look at them and you go, huh, that's interesting that didn't hit with the world, right? For whatever reason, like you said, there's a fair amount of projects that, again, not even necessarily based off of cost, but you look at it and you go, wow, that's really well told. Circumstances, weather, things like 9/11. I remember, I was working on Spider-Man 1 when we had the 9/11 hits, and again, shifting and having to switch things around because it's New York, and how do you do this, right? I think media is a very risky investment no matter what, but it pays off when it depends on the goal, right? And so that's, again, I think for us, I feel like Christians yielded culture, right, and then got mad when culture went bad.
Yep.
Right? And so the whole thing is that, so fine, it's risky, but is it worth the risk? Right? And so so I think that's kind of what I would say to an investor at the highest level is, if don't be upset that Hollywood is winning, because really they're risking it every day.
Well, and I also
right?
think,
and so that's why I'm like, to get in that fight, and then you go, okay, I want to be in the fight, and then it's like, okay, how do I find the teams that are doing or have again, a track record. Just because you have a track record doesn't mean, Disney, again, I think Disney's gone off the rails, right? And I think they've lost track of their audience. But again, they're a big machine, so they know how to do it. So again, there's so many moving parts. But again, I think the first thing for an investor is, do you want to be in the fight? Because this is a fight, like for culture. And so I think that's the big thing. And if you do, then let's talk about what that can look like, and then the risks that are
involved. Investors can bring their own level of excellence and discipline to it, which is what the studios do, which is to say, we want to see a plan for distribution.
Right.
We want to see a budget.
How do we
want to
risk
see
averse
how
this
you're
whole
going to
thing?
deliver
Right.
this.
Yeah.
And there are the business elements of any complex production like this that have to be in place. But often, because of passion, we invest in a script or an idea or a person without the plan for what that surrounding infrastructure to commercialize it will look like.
Well, it's funny because we tell, when we speak to college kids or young filmmakers, whatever, we always say, look, remember, it's show business.
Yes.
There's a business. Everybody loves the show, right? They love the sets and they love the lights and the actors and the red carpets and all the things. But there's a business to this. And if you don't treat it like one, like any business, right? And I also think too, from an investment standpoint, I think the one-off investment is dangerous.
Yeah.
But again, we live in Texas, right? So oil and gas is king, right? Oil and gas and real estate. You see that everywhere in Texas. There's a lot of it. But very rarely have I heard of, let's go drill one well, just one, and see if it succeeds, and then I'll do more. Let's go build one house, just one house. I don't want to build multiple houses. I don't want to, but you see that in the movie industry. I'm like, so people, from an investment standpoint, you need to invest in a slate of films, multiple projects over multiple years, because again, most likely, if you do 10 movies, well, 2 or 3 of them may just fail, just miserably fail. Then a handful of them maybe break even or just above, and then you have those 1 or 2 that just take off.
Well,
right? And I think that's kind of like the oil thing. Keep drilling those holes, and then when you finally find it, then you hit it big. But the fact that you drilled only one hole and you were mad that you didn't make millions of dollars, I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense.
But those 10 films can also be culturally impactful.
Yes.
Yep.
Right. So again, so it's also looking at, and again, I think that's the big thing for me. And I think the other thing, I'm surprised you didn't touch on this, is from an investing standpoint, the other thing I'm shocked in is, wait, how did that happen? Mm-hmm. Right? In other words, just doing even due diligence on any product, right? So wait, you're in control. You know what I mean? I mean, there's been so many things to where it's like, wow, how did you end up here? Yeah. Right? So I think that relationship between the top producers, filmmakers, and those investors, I think, is crucial, right? And understanding, okay, we got some common goals here and what you're trying to achieve, not just the product.
Well, and we talk, one way I've started to think about it is platforms, not projects. It's kind of, how do you get around the most excellent people in the industry who have a slate of content that they want to produce, and how do you invest in that diversified platform? And now I think what's encouraging to Christians is there are platforms operating at a level of excellence that probably wasn't true in the recent past, whether that's 5 and 2, whether it's Wonder Project, Angel Studios, or Out of Order. So I want to talk a little bit, Chad and Chris, about Out of Order Studios, your production company. Tell us more about that. Where are you guys headed? Because obviously The Chosen has been such an all-consuming task. Spoiler alert, the story it ends and begins here soon. It's not quite an ending, but it is an ending for the TV series within a couple of seasons. What is your vision for Out of Order, and what do you two hope to accomplish?
The Faith-Driven Investor Conference. Here's to faithful disruptors, the ones who are spreading seeds instead of building storehouses. The ones who solve real problems and take righteous risks. God didn't give you your platform to play it safe. That's why every February, faith-driven investors across 100 countries are gathering in person, online, or at watch parties around the world. 3 hours, battle-tested investors, zero fluff. This isn't just hype, it's a movement. For more information, visit faithdriveninvestorconference.org. That's faithdriveninvestorconference.org. Together, we can solve the world's greatest problems.
I mean, obviously, we've been a pretty big part of this chosen world, this chosen verse. Chris and I are producing kind of the first spin-off within the Chosen universe called The Chosen Adventures, which is an animated series that will come out later this year. Really excited about that. And obviously, there's been a lot of conversation about other projects, right? Dallas made the announcement at ChosenCon last year about
I was there.
Yeah,
I was there.
Moses and Joseph and the Bear Grylls project. So there is this universe, this chosen verse, right, that's about to kind of explode. And so we obviously have to sit down and have conversations with Dallas on what of those we want to be a part of, or what do they want us to be a part of, right, as a production company. But we kind of continue to say, and Dallas has told us, he's like, you guys really need to focus on the mothership, right? Because the chosen, that's the baby, right? That's the one that's kind of causing all this. And obviously we have 2 more seasons to do of this, and they're the biggest 2 seasons to go.
And the hardest to get right.
Oh, probably. Absolutely. Well, this is what everybody's kind of been waiting for, right? And we even said kind of back in like the COVID days in season 2 and 3 when the show was kind of taking off, I think we were all sitting around one day and it was just like, oh, wait, we're going to have to do that season. And now we're in that season.
Yeah, you're talking about the pace at which you tell a story, right? And then you're like, wow, we're going to sit in that for so long.
Yep.
You know what I mean? You think about Passion of the Christ, and that's, 2 hours, right? We're sitting in that for 8 hours.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I think, what happens within The Chosen, we just don't know. But we're excited about it. And obviously we've been here since day one, and, we love Dallas, and hopefully there's those types of things to go. But Out of Order, when we started it, the interesting thing about it is Chris and I couldn't have a more different backgrounds. I'm over 20 years in the independent space, and he was 20 years in the studio space, right? And I was kind of doing all these kind of small, scrappy little things, right? And doing it for a long time. I've made 15, 20 movies. And obviously he's working on these massive budgets and CG and visual effects and high-end animation and all those types of things. So when God brought us together, we really kind of sat down and said, well, what if we bring the best of both of those worlds, right? Highest level quality, not the highest level budgets. And honestly, The Chosen was kind of that perfect incubator for what Chris and I as Out of Order wanted to do. We started as this small, little, scrappy little thing, and then over time it's just grown and got bigger and bigger and bigger. And so it's kind of like there's times, and for Chris and I as producers, it's always very obvious for us what we should be doing and shouldn't be doing. He's got skill sets that I have no clue how to touch, and vice versa. So it's always been great as a producing pair to be able to go, there's nothing between $1 million and $150 million that we couldn't handle.
Yeah.
And we have full confidence in that. And we have a proof, going back to that whole who are you investing in sort of thing. We have the proof to go, here's the projects that we've done over the years. And The Chosen is one of the perfect examples. Again, you very rarely, if ever, really see that a project go from this small little scrappy thing into this massive thing. And it's only going to get bigger from here. And then that launches into other stories, right? These types of things. And so I think that's one of the biggest things for Out of Order is, first and foremost, we don't have a genre that we do. We don't have a type that we do. Because again, we could do $100 million animated feature.
Yeah.
We could start that tomorrow. And we have full confidence it's going to be at the highest level. Or we could go do a little $2 million indie film that's 4 people in a room talking. And we would kill that too. And so now we are developing a lot of our own projects. Out of Order is some in the faith space, some not. I think one of the biggest things that we're trying to do is impact culture. That's what Out of Order wants to do.
Yeah, I think our next goal is, we were talking about creating environments, right? Is now in the development space. So my brain thinks about scalability, right? And so I think we all talk about impacting culture. But I think really what it comes down to is we got to train people on how to do a craft at a level, actually backing up even a little bit further, realizing that there's a desire for our craft to be done at a higher level, right? And so the types of stories, and again, it doesn't have to be straight biblical, right? I think there are so many just culturally impactful stories, right?
That's right.
So from a development standpoint, what we've been really wanting to do is looking for people who've been operating at a level and try to elevate. From a storytelling standpoint. That's what changed it for us on the Chosen initially, was that writing.
Yeah.
Getting the stories and telling things in a unique way that are not just engaging to, again, plenty of things that were going into those bookstores, right? Would you sit down with your family and it checked a whole bunch of boxes and it was very safe and comfortable and done, right? Okay, that's fine. Then those things can continue to be made.
But it didn't change culture.
It didn't change culture. It didn't cause conversations.
Yeah.
Right. And so you've got to have this space to where, again, there's certain things, even today, I mean, it's getting better and better that The Chosen, more and more people, I think one of our best interviews we've ever done was with an atheist. We were halfway through the interview and the guy's like, hey, just by the way, I'm an atheist, you know, and I think the quote of that day was, you don't have to believe in dragons to enjoy watching a movie about dragons.
Yep.
Right. But again, he's talking about it.
Yep.
Right. And he's asking questions about storytelling and stuff like that. So,
Well, he just loved it from a story. He's like, I just like your characters. I don't believe in all this Jesus stuff.
Well,
but it's
I
such
mean,
a
a
great
personal
story.
story, I met a guy at a fundraising event for when we were helping set up Wonder Project. And I had recommended The Chosen to him because he said, I haven't seen anything in this area. Like, what would you watch? And I said, watch The Chosen. And so he called me like 3 weeks later, we were catching up and he's like, my family and I are loving The Chosen. We watch every episode together.
Right.
And he said, you know, I don't know if you knew this, but I'm not a Christian, but this is like a really good show.
Right.
And he actually now is a Christian. He came to faith.
And those are the stories that don't ever get old, right? You know, we
Totally.
get excited when people haven't seen the show because it just shows there's that many more people that need to see it and need to do it. And so
going back to the goal, I think on the development side is not just to develop projects, but it's actually to really invest in people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the whole thing is that being inside the studio system and seeing how projects are developed, they're good at developing projects. Mm-hmm. They're not good at taking good care of people. Mm-hmm. Right. And so the whole thing is you hit a certain point, you're not hitting a deadline, you're out. Right. So we're trying to shift that paradigm inside it to make it where we're, because again, the more people we can raise up to a level, and again, whether they work with us again or not, but they're out in the world and they're doing something. Right. Yeah. And so that's, to me, the projects can help, but the people and multiplying those people, that's how you're really going to start to really influence it back.
Can I ask a potentially controversial question? It's actually quite controversial in the industry right now, but you said you worked in animation, you work in live action. Artificial intelligence is kind of at the doorstep. I'm a venture capital investor, so we've been aware of this trend for quite some time. But it is fundamentally changing the ways in which you can do some of these. Animation strikes me particularly as an area where artificial intelligence increasingly is going to be a part of that, and yet the studios have been slow to adopt it, I think, at this point. Where do you see that going? What's the role for artificial intelligence in movie making, and can it bring down production costs? Do you find that it has a constructive role?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of conversations going about this. So a lot of, in visual effects and animation, you talk about pipelines, right?
Yeah.
So how things are built. And so people, I feel like people are saying, okay, looking for an AI pipeline kind of thing, right? And again, I don't think anybody knows. I don't think worldwide that we know exactly how this is going to impact our culture in the way we live. But I would say that to me, it's a tool, right? And I think it's going to make really senior artists go faster.
Yep.
A fear I have is that we're going to lose our training pipelines, right?
Oh, interesting.
So right now, if you think about on an animated project, a lot of times what happens, back when I started, the goal was to have no more than 20 to 24 animators like actually doing animation on a project. You got 120 at this point, right? And you just can't crank them out fast enough. So there's only so many seniors, and so you end up having a lot of junior animators that are kind of fresh out of school and they can't go as fast and all this other stuff. So what's going to happen, I think, is it's going to make your senior animators able to do more quickly.
Yes.
So we're going to have this short-term burst, right? But then what? So
if you're not training people.
So how to, again, think about it like even from a paralegal standpoint, right? So a lawyer to, now all of a sudden the low menial task that it wasn't worth paying the high dollar for, well, who's doing that? So how are you going to maintain your workforce? There is a level, and we just went through it. There's a guy by the name of Sam Mishlap on our Animated. He's a production designer, comes out of Disney and DreamWorks, and he thinks about art at a different level. right? So we just went through this production with him. There's no AI that's going to do that. So the other thing I think you're going to have happen is I think there will be a burst, kind of like if you think about YouTube during the early days, and like all this content just started being out there, but it wasn't good. Right. Another phase I remember is when, so I worked on Polar Express, and we did Polar Express in 3D.
Yeah.
Right. And then all of a sudden it's like everything's
got
to be in 3D. And
then
so,
it wasn't.
Well, then what happened was is that,
3Ding it, which wasn't good 3D.
that's what happened is, right, they go, okay, well, you guys did it in the computer and you did it a certain way. And then there was like, oh, well, we're going to go shoot it in 3D. And then they're like, well, that's really cumbersome and time and expensive. And so then they're like, oh, we're going to do it in post. And then it was really bad.
Yeah.
Right. And so I wonder what kind of a reset we're going to go through with some of this, right? To where it's just going to be, I think there's going to be certain tools that it's, I think finding errors in accounting, finding, errors in scripts or
sure.
Those kind of things, speeding up processes, maybe communication, stuff like that. I just wonder the actual creative of it and the storytelling. There's just, like I said, I go back to, if I walked you through the level of detail and thought that went into the artwork behind our animated, right? So sure, could it have been done cheaper? But there's an intangible thing, and The Chosen has that as well, right? There's an intangible, it comes down to when you start to really break it down, the way the camera moves or the grittiness of it, the way it's lit, all these kind of things to where, there is no version where Dallas kind of sits in front of a prompt and does 17 jobs and describes it all. You know what I mean? So I think the tools are going to help the good people go faster, the great people go faster. I worry about the...
And one of the things I think that makes some of these guys so unique is what they do differently and unexpectedly, which would be difficult to replicate. You're describing that with Dallas. I've seen it with John Gunn and John Irwin. It's those choices that you would make that are different than what's expected.
Yeah.
That really stand out and move something forward, which would be difficult for something like artificial intelligence to accomplish on its own. Maybe as a tool, you can use it.
The personal touch is everything, right? Art is a personal touch. Again, when you look at a certain artist, you can see that artist, that personal touch in it. And yeah, I think that AI is going to do certain things, but the question will be, is it ever going to get to that personal thing? The majority of AI now, if not all of it, and again, it's getting better in the realistic, the look is getting more and more realistic, but there's just always that thing about AI, from an artistic standpoint, that's just like, it just feels a bit off. And again, I think there's certain things, things that are very sci-fi or not in our world. Yeah. I think you can definitely apply those things because we don't know exactly what the other side of space looks like. So AI, tell us what the other side of space looks like. And you can convince people that that's kind of what it is, even though that was a personal touch before. So I think that's going to be the biggest thing. I think it's going to be a great tool, but not take over certain things.
And I wonder
if
it can,
does it to your point about that whole, we got to make sure that we're continuing to train the next generation, and that's a huge thing as well, is getting artists to get better and not rely on those things. You need to go learn your craft and then use those things to get better at it.
And I wonder if, like the advances in camera technology, et cetera, it's something that can actually unleash new forms of storytelling where it's not $200 million to make an epic piece, where someone with a much smaller budget could kind of tell a great story, make interesting choices, enabled by the...
It's going to impact workforces for sure. I think you look at visual effects, right? And again, you go watch a big Marvel movie and you see all of the credits that are there. I think again, those processes are going to go faster and they will be cheaper. The way to pull a blue screen, the way to correct mistakes, you know what I mean? I think, again, those are tools that are going to aid things. I don't know. I just don't know, getting, it's going to be interesting to see how that, somebody told me I worked on the very first movie I worked on was Contact, and there was a mistake, right? There was it was a render process that took days to do. And we were evaluating it, and it's the opening shot of Contact, and one of the planets, rather than fade off, it just pops, right? And it's really small, and you like, if you see it, and then the guy in charge goes, you know what, nothing perfect has a soul.
Yeah.
And so the whole thing is that AI is heading towards perfection.
Ah, interesting.
Right. And I think you, when you say it's like,
Whatever that is.
Whatever that is, right? You know what I mean? Turn that into a word somehow. Whatever that is, I think is what we're picking up on right now.
Yeah.
And again, that's that intangible, like you just don't know why.
Well, I want to close us with a final question. You guys have obviously been pioneers in this space with The Chosen. You've spent a career in the industry. What advice would you give to someone who's looking to make an impact in culture through entertainment, whether that person is a creator like you or like some of the folks in more specific roles, or an investor who's looking to try and make an impact alongside those creators?
Run. Don't do this.
That's on the creator side.
Cut the
That's on the
podcast.
creative side. Yeah, that's on the creative side. Yeah. I mean, I think on the creative side, again, I think it goes back to craft, right? Learn your craft. And I think that people are looking for the shortcut. People are looking for, I want to be the big filmmaker tomorrow, all those things. And we say this all the time. If you're a writer and you're not writing all the time, regardless of whether anybody ever sees it, then you're not a writer.
That's right.
And if you're an actor and you're mad because I didn't get a commercial or I didn't get a movie, but there's a local theater, community theater down the corner that you could go audition for and get into show and continue to hone your craft and get better at it, then you don't want to be an actor. People love the idea of the industry, but they don't. When they get here, when people come on set, and you've been on enough sets now, you go, this ain't very sexy. This is not.
Those days get long.
This is hard what we do. It's not an easy thing, and it's not for the faint of heart. And I think part of that would even transition over on the investor side of things, right? That it's not for the faint of heart. But again, I think that same thing. Do the research, find the right people, learn more and more about it, right? And I think that's going to be one of the biggest things is just to really dig into those things. So.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the investor side in particular. Is why do you want to invest? Right. And the whole thing is that the glitz, the glamour, again, most of us are I was 20 years inside Hollywood. I'm trying to get out of that. Right. Like, in other words, it's less about that. It's more about, I think the stories that need to be told, I think they're ones that are going to, over time impact culture. So the whole thing is that there's three pillars that we talk about a lot. Right. So then I think from an investing standpoint, you can help in any of these, right? Which is spark the next generation. We do a film camp, right? So with Hoblitzel once a year. And so that is our, I think it's 13 to 24 age range, right?
Cool.
And so the whole thing is that that's showing them, okay, you can tell these type of stories to a level, right? And we say we're the floor. Like, you need to go and exceed us, right? And so really sparking that next generation to want to excel. Then we do interns, right? So we do at least, it got a little smaller this year, but I'm going to say we're averaging between 40-ish interns.
Oh, wow.
Every
right?
season.
So those college
That's a
kids.
lot of
So we've had a couple of hundred interns we started in season 2 with interns. And these are kids from all over the nation.
You're about to get a lot of emails after this podcast.
And well, the funny thing is we didn't even have to ask.
We've never advertised for it. So,
and we get hundreds of applications, which obviously is a great thing, but you want more of those opportunities.
Totally.
There's nothing better than being on set.
Totally.
There's nothing better for a young filmmaker.
Totally.
So.
well, yeah, because you think you have a vision of what it is you get to come see. So sparking it for them. Infrastructure, right? So that's, if you got people that want to do real estate plays and stuff like that, that's one of the things that I think The Chosen has done is there's I've described passion as kind of a pebble being thrown into a pond and a ripple effect, and The Chosen's kind of more like a wake, right? It's this cutting edge of what's happening, and there's this wake being left behind, and I think we need to take advantage of that wake that's back there to really build upon culture. So there's infrastructure plays, right? So sound stages and equipment and stuff like that. And then the third is content.
Yeah.
Without a doubt, right? And so, but why are you doing the content? The whole thing is we've seen again, not to call anybody out, but don't invest in a project because you have a family member that wants to be in it something, right? Like, in other words, make sure we're in it for the right reason, because again, it's got to be it's hard enough to succeed when everything aligns, much less when there's all these things that are pinned in, right? And so, why are you investing in that content? And for me personally, if it's not really to be a long play at trying to impact culture, then you may not want to be doing it.
Right.
And unless it's just that family story that's really, really good and you want to see made, and then you're gonna trust the creatives to go and do it.
And I also think something for Chris and I, we want to see all ships rise, right? The industry in general is a pretty mine, back. And honestly, I've seen it. I've been in the faith space for 25 years, and I've seen it just as much in this space. It's me and mine, me and my three, right? Like it's that sort of mentality versus, you know, and it was a big part because Chris and I were making our own stuff. But then when we saw Dallas, because honestly, Chris and I are normally more involved on the creative side, and we're not involved at all on The Chosen creatively. But we're like, but that's great. Like we don't need the three writers in Dallas. They did a great job. Like we don't need to go get involved. But what can we bring to the table?
Yeah.
What can we do to help Dallas's ship rise? Right? And hopefully everybody is doing that. It's like, you know, don't just go you and what God called you to do, because most likely it's not just you. And our industry, I mean, we have 400 crew members.
Yep.
Like it ain't
Yep.
just one of us, right? And so when I see people like the Irwins succeeding, and I see people like Kevin Downs succeeding, and you see all these different people in the industry, everybody wanting to raise the ships and to get better, that's what you want. And how can we help each other? And so obviously a big part of that is on the investment side. I mean, because again, I'm a filmmaker. I make stuff pretty good, and you know, and we can go look. This is what we do, but I don't raise money. That's not what I do. I mean, you know, and I don't do marketing. I know enough about marketing to be dangerous, but I'm not in marketing. I'm not a publicist. I'm not a distributor. I'm not any of those things. So it kind of takes all walks of life to kind of do these things. You know, in the film industry, there is not one profession that doesn't touch. I mean,
Yep.
literally make it up. I mean, you know, he had penguin researchers on Surf's Up, you know, and you know
My 6-year-old will be very encouraged that there are penguin researchers to
right?
jobs
You know?
to be
And
had.
it's just, you know, from scientists to lawyers to attorneys to investors to whatever, literally every position touches the film industry. I don't care what your trade is. Most likely that trade has somehow worked in the film industry at some point. So again, that's just the perfect example. It just takes all of us to go get these things done.
Well, that is a great note to close on. I do think you guys, in the spirit of lifting up the entire industry, what you all have accomplished with Out of Order, and particularly with The Chosen, was a catalyst for a lot of what we've seen develop here. I think we all owe you a debt of gratitude for the excellence with which you've practiced your craft, and we're grateful to you guys for coming on today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Come for content, stay for community. Join a faith-driven investing group online or in person. Visit faithdriveninvestor.org. That's faithdriveninvestor.org.